My name is Adam Stockholm from Long and McQuaid. It is my pleasure to welcome our speaker tonight, Dr. Tim Lautzenheiser from the Consummer Division of Education. Dr. Tim, as he is well known in the music education world, has spent a lifetime as a music teacher, band director, and tireless advocate for the importance of music education in schools. Without any further ado from me, please join me in a warm virtual welcome for Dr. Tim Lautzenheiser.
Good. Thanks, Adam. Well, first of all, thanks everybody for showing up and giving up your time, your effort, your energy. Well, I think most important thing is time. Yeah. So hopefully we'll be able to identify a couple things that might help or support or at least give some inspiration to head forward. Adam's great. He's on here. And if you have a question or something, you want to put it in the chat line, pop that puppy in there and we'll certainly address it. Adam and I were just talking about the whole pandemic and obviously, what it's done and how it's shifted not only what we do, but the way we do what we do, et cetera, et cetera. So let me assure those of you who are looking for some kind of research or data, that's not going to get it. My life is about being a gypsy. I run from place to place and get to talk to wonderful teachers like you. And so any information that comes forward is anecdotal research at best. But it's frontline stuff, hanging out there with you. I make no bones about it. And I understand that the vast majority of teachers that are on here are probably music teachers. So you're my favorites. After doing countless all in-service teacher professional development sessions, and this in no way diminishes the value of any other teacher, but certainly you are incredibly special for several reasons, and that's kind of what I'm going to focus on a little bit. So throw out those questions along the way, and we'll address them. So here's what's interesting about this. So many things that we have taken for granted for so long. And I think sometimes that other people don't even understand. I mean, how do you explain art to somebody who hasn't experienced it? Because it's not about the words, it is the art itself. Other academic subjects tend to be definitive. You can put it in ink and it's going to stay that way forever. Ours is constantly moving. And even within those that are inked, Beethoven never sounds the same twice, right? And it's all about the people involved and the expression. And if you want to just stand back and look at it, we're probably the last expressionistic class that's offered in the school curriculum. Everything else is impressionistic. A teacher gives the student information, the student gives it back, and the closer those two match, the higher the grade of the student. Not bad or good, it's just a way of learning. A replication, right? Or click and drag, if you will. Music, art, theater, dance is expressionistic. So we take the information and then we add our personalities to it. It's a chance to express, to say something that we may not be able to say with words. I mean, you'll quickly figure out I don't have a very big vocabulary. But if you put 4 marimba mallets in my hands, I can say a lot of things with them. And it's a feeling. And school is about cognitive. It's about data. It's about black and white, where music, art is about affective. It's about feeling. It changes each time. And for some kids, that's the only experience they ever have of that in school. To be real honest, and everybody on here has probably got a college degree. You can go to college as long as you go to class, turn in the work, buy the book, read it, etc. You probably can get through college without saying not very many words. You don't have to really get involved. You take the test and so forth and get the degree and walk out. You can't do that in art. You have to participate. You have to give. Also, if you look at other classes, and again, please understand that I have such respect for that math teacher that day after day hammers out those same lesson plans that they have for 17 years or whatever. I mean, God bless you for doing that, right? But in our situation, if a young person goes in and says, I don't want to pay attention in history class, I don't even want to read the book. I don't want to turn the assignments. It really doesn't mean that much to the rest of the class. That's only to that person that does the self-damage or whatever you want to call it. In a music situation, you can't get away with that because we're all connected. If let's go back to our history guy and says, I don't want to come to the class that day, they don't stop the class. It doesn't affect the rest of the class. You lose 2 or 3 people out of rehearsal, it shows up. You have to adjust everything to that. And so the responsibility level, the ability to respond shifts in our environment. Okay, so we all got that. We know that, right? We've all taken classes in college and we've gotten our highest grades, our A's or whatever it is, walked out of that class and went, delete. I will never use that information ever again in my life. And I will bet you anything that some of you, if you took, I don't know, an algebra test right now, I'll bet you couldn't pass it. But I'll bet you can sing all that music that you played or sang, or I'll bet you remember the lyrics to those tunes. Or, if you're a dancer, I'll bet you can jump right back in and, replay all those steps that you learned, all that choreography. So it's different. It affects a different part of our mind. Now, with that, we take that same strength of learning and we put it on top of everything else. I mean, you've heard it 1,000 times. What? All the smart kids are in the arts, right? All the smart kids in the arts. And for years, it was the post part of that was, well, yeah, but all the smart kids are in the arts because they start out as the smart kids. And what research has shown us, which is pretty darn exciting if you want to get right at it, is that once they join the arts is when their academic grades increase in other subjects. Also, the corollary of that is once they leave an arts program, the rest of their academic grades will decrease. So all you got to do is get online, Google that, and you'll find out there's a lot of information about that. And in fact, the research about why music or why arts or why choir or why band or why orchestra or why anything in the arts. The other day, I Googled why learn music, right? And at that time, and it's shifting per day, at that time, there was 5.3 billion, with a B, billion pieces of information that you could link into. And well, my gosh, we couldn't read all that. You couldn't read that in a lifetime. So what I'm saying is, as part of us, our responsibilities in being in this profession is to be able to share that information with mom and dad. I suspect many of you are parents. And is not the most important thing to every parent the success and welfare of their child? What is it? Maslow said the bottom level of the scale of hierarchy is survival, and then we build up from there. And I should never argue with Abraham Maslow, but I think parents would give up their life. I think for a child that actually they would give up survival if it meant the welfare of their child, or if they needed a vital organ, that was the only match the child would have. You wouldn't even think about it. You just go, well, sure, let's go. Let's get at this right away, right? So it's different. Then, it's just for those who are economically oriented. Well, I want my kid to be a doctor or whatever like that. There's just a lot of wonderful, almost trivia information. The highest level of admittance to medical schools are music majors. It's pretty interesting, isn't it? So when somebody said, well, my kid doesn't have time for music, he's going to be an architect or she's going to be a nurse or whatever. you might want to check out some of those statistics and find out why those schools are constantly seeking people who've had experience in band, choir, orchestra, theater, dance, and etc. I mean, it's all the same, right? This is one I heard the other day. One of my friends got this one, and I was just like knocked out about it. Excuse me. Johns Hopkins University, which is arguably one of the best medical schools in the world. People come from all over the globe to attend Johns Hopkins University. It's such a great medical school. And so everybody wants to go there, right? I mean, you go to, that's the Harvard of medical schools. And they take all of the students that are interested, you know, and they've turned in all their proposals and so forth. And they start narrowing down to for the freshman class that they're going to get. And then they get down to the final few, and they actually fly them into Baltimore, where Johns Hopkins is. And they go through a battery of tests and interviews and so forth. The last question they ask them on the interview is, did you sing or play an instrument when you were in high school? Now, what's that got to do with being a doctor? Because they know that you, as teachers, have prepared those students to go from beginning to end without stopping. You know, if you don't want to do a couple on a questions on an English test, you just don't do them. You can't do that in the arts. You can't stop and pull over. You know, and that's why I always, when people say, well, you know, I think, I think music's a lot like sports. Well, there's certainly a lot of things that are much the same. But in sports, think about this. First of all, only so many get to play. You know, each team has a restricted number. Music's a place for everybody. We also know that every child is born with the propensity to make music. So it's different, right? You don't play well in sports, they'll put you on the bench. Very few of us will do that. You'd like to do it sometimes, wouldn't you? Have you ever thought how cool it would be? Like you're directing, right? And like there's a section not good or some kid's not making it. And you're like, Bill, out. You Jeff in for Bill. we don't have that option, do we? We take them all. If you can fog a mirror, we're going to find you a place in there somewhere. So, I mean, with that's sort of the foundation. Why music? Why arts? It would be better to ask why not, because that would be a shorter answer. In fact, there's no reason not to. Now, here's really important, particularly for those of you who do elementary. When you get those young kids, and first of all, you're my very favorites to start out with, because that's where we have to get them. It's like the gauntlet, and you're the front end of that gauntlet. And I have such respect for you that the fact that you're, maybe dragging a cart from classroom to classroom with all of the technical stuff that you need so they can dance and play and sing. And because once they're hooked, once they know that it is a language, once they know that they can be who they are via that communication, they're going to do it forever. And by the way, so will their children. And so we perpetuate our own kind from that way. Now, let's stand back and say, well, yeah, Tim, but we put the amount of hours we put in. Do you have any idea? Yeah, it's endless. It's absolutely endless. I always tease about most teachers come to school when it starts. You have already been there for an hour and a half, right? You've had some early morning sectional or whatever it is. And most teachers will leave when the school day ends. And for many of us, that's when we start, because we've got after school rehearsals, or we're getting ready for the play, or, upcoming the festival when we're all, because it's a family. Here's the difference. Now, first of all, we have to admit that music teachers are different, right? Just think about this. My guess is that a lot of you that are here because of an arts teacher, a music teacher, a band director, whatever it is. There was somebody in your life that you were around that went, hey, you got talent. You went, I do. you're like, yeah, you're really good at this. And so, of course, when somebody tells you you're good at something, what do? You spend more time doing it. And when you spend more time doing it, you get better. And when you get better, you get recognized, you spend more time doing it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So a lot of us are here because of the influence of our mentors, our teachers. Think about this. Like in elementary, middle school, or high school, they will get that, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a good subject here. They'll get that foreign language teacher once or twice in their middle school, high school career. They get you every year. Sometimes they get you every day of every year. And in many cases, they spend more time with you than they do their own parents. And weren't you one of those kind of people that hung around the rehearsal room? When you were in school and come to school early, where'd you go? You went to the rehearsal room. Your lockers were outside the rehearsal room. Or that back place in the theater where there's old broken down couches and refrigerators that still kind of work. And yeah. And didn't you get passes to get out of class, go down, hang out, like you were going to practice, but maybe didn't? And after school was over with, where did you go? You went down to the rehearsal room, because who else was there? The rest of your family. The rest of your arts family was there. And when you went on trips and so forth, who did you hang out with? You hung out with those people. And this is great, Adam, I'm with you. Every lunch hour was in the music room. And there was probably a rule you weren't supposed to have lunch in the music room, but you were still there. And you take off to college, and when you come back to visit, where did you go? You went back to the rehearsal room. And when the class got together for the reunion, who hung out together? The music family did. The arts family did. And it's just things, again, that you and I take for granted. And didn't you have the shirts with the logos on them and the jackets and all the swag stuff that went with it? Anybody seen a chemistry jacket lately? I don't think so. So I got to tell you this. I'm doing this professional development session for administrators. Yeah. They're great. And there's a lot of people that really crash on administrators. And I'm like, hey, they're doing the best they know how. With the information they have, which is another thing we need to talk about, with the information they have, they're doing the very best they know how. They want great schools. And so they're grabbing every card in the deck they can to make it happen. So anyway, I'm doing this, and it was done virtually. Yeah. So I'm doing this PD session on leadership. They never tell them I'm a music teacher, God forbid, for these principals. And this is during the pandemic. Now, they had gone together and created a survey before they did the session, because they were all concerned about which class in their school was engaging the kids the best, which class was hooking them, was keeping them online, was keeping them from shutting off their cameras and getting under their hoodies and laying in bed and playing with their dogs and whatever else. All right. Or not showing up at all. How's that? Right. So they bring all of their information together. Which class do you think it was? Do I need to tell you? No. You already know which class it was. It was one of the arts classes. Band, choir, orchestra, theater, dance. And all of these principals who didn't know what the others had before they got there are going like, well, guy, you got the same results I did. And what'd you get? Same here. Then they start exploring this, because at this time we didn't know how long this, holdout was going to be, where we're going to be teaching online. Why are these crazy music people hanging out? What is it about them? Then they start looking at all the facts. First of all, many of you are far more than a teacher. You're a surrogate, father, mother, aunt, uncle, even brother, sister. certainly confident and confidant. You're all of those things. You're the ones they see every year. If you don't think you're important, if you don't think one person makes a difference, then tell me why there's a program of 150. That teacher who's been there for 22 years that is teaching the students of the students leaves. Why does the program go down to 22? I mean, the curriculum's the same, right? The information's the same. 4 time is the same. F sharp's the same. What's the big difference? It's you. If the math teacher leaves, they'll hire another math teacher and that class will be full next year. You can count on it. If an arts teacher leaves, the personality is not there, there'll be kids that'll quit. Just walk. And then also the other side is true, where somebody comes in like you, who's excited, inspired, enthusiastic. Enthusiasm means in the presence of a divine spirit. And, isn't that great? Theology, enthusiasm. And then the kids polarize around that person. And again, I would imagine that all of us have 2 or 3 mentors that we've polarized around because we wanted to be like them. Not that the information was not important, not that the music or the dance or the play, or whatever it is, not that that wasn't important, but it was that teacher that kept juicing us all the time. Adam and I were laughing about marching band because we're crazy about it here in the States. And I'm sitting in Houston right now. Do you know how hot it is here in Houston? And yet the smartest kids in the school in about 6 weeks will go out on that field and stand and sweat their brains out to learn some marching band show. And then they'll put them in a wool uniform and stick a feather in the side of their head and make them march 5 miles in a parade behind the horses. And they'll do it. And at the end, they'll thank their director for the opportunity. You can't pay people to do that. But that's what pulls it together. It's the mortar between the bricks. Yeah? Not that school's easy, but come on, if you put your nose on the grindstone, we can all get through it. But the arts keep growing and developing. It's not take the class, check it off. It's constant. It's a lifestyle. It's in our system. And haven't you all had those moments of performing, to be with the form, to perform, that you felt something you never felt before? Well, are we going to take that away from kids? So I know you're going, well, Tim, yeah, but you don't understand the parameters that we're under and so forth. Everybody's under parameters. But just like Adam said, we can always find a way around it, right, Adam? We'll find a way one way or another. I've often teased, we're sort of like roaches. You flush us, we come right back up, right? Because we're not going to not have music. This is one of my all-time favorite stories. And I want you to be real. I want to be real clear about this. I think the most important thing is the cognitive part. Really, I do. I don't think I know programs where it's a big feel good and all that sort of thing. And let me get into music. Let me go down in that tunnel. And the music is not strong. It's just not being taught well. So I think number one is musicianship. And that's something that's a lifelong learning, right? It says, I began to learn the minute I left college, or for you veteran teachers, we all know something. The more you know you don't know, because there's so much more learning to do. Right? So anyway, I never want to even hint that that's not the most important thing. But there's so much more to what we do as music teachers. So I had 2 students. I'll call them Bill and Betty. How's that? So those are false names, by the way, but the students are real. Bill was a phenomenon. And this was a college band. So we got to start there. He was a phenomenal trumpet player. Oh my God. Oh, he could play with the big end in his mouth. He was that good. He was gifted. He was kissed by an angel. But this kid had the most cynical, toxic attitude that you could possibly imagine. But he was so good, everybody kind of turned a blind eye to that part of it, right? Oh, he was a pain in the butt. But then he put the horn up to his mouth, and oh, my Lord, it was Gabriel, right? The faculty at the university where I was teaching loved him because he could sit down and read the notes off the page. He was just fantastic. And so, I mean, that's all they cared about. They wanted me to play in the brass quintet and the opera orchestra and that sort of thing. There's another little girl in the band, we'll call her Betty. She was a trumpet player too. She struggled. Betty struggled. She was not real intelligent, but oh my God, what a spirit the kid had. And she was the kind that would always come early and help load the truck and stay afterwards and unload the truck and always wrote nice thank you notes and just a sweetheart kid. But oh, I'm not sure she could get above G on the trumpet. And she practiced. He never practiced. He didn't have to. He was just that good. So anyway, it comes time they graduate. Somebody said the other day, do you make up these stories? Oh God, no. The real ones are way too good. So it comes down, they're down now, and it's time for them to get a job. So all the faculty go, we got to keep him in the area so we can use him to play with all of our groups. We don't want to let him, he's just that good. So they got him a job at the local burb school. And it was a very rich school, by the way. Okay. We did everything to find a job for her. Oh my God, we looked at, finally we get some job out in the middle of the country, and there's like a little gas station there and a silo, and that was about it. And he got to do at his school the band. He was the band director. And at her school, she was band, choir, soccer, drive the bus, help the custodians. You understand? So the first year they both had me come out to work with their groups, right? I went into this beautiful Taj Mahal school of his. Oh my God. Thinking, God, I wish I had facilities like this, right? Go into the room, and it looked like a bomb went off in there. It smelled terrible. It was a mess. The kids came in, they weren't prepared. They were rude. And not because they wanted to be, they just didn't know how to behave. Nobody had talked about what was proper behavior in those, you have the guests come in and so forth. They sounded horrible. So afterwards, I took him out to eat, and I said, Bill, what's going on here? He goes, oh, he said, these bunch of spoiled brats. He said, they have everything. He said, they have everything they want. They go to Paris, like on the weekends and stuff like that. And he said, they don't have any sense of discipline or what it takes to, delayed gratification, all this sort of thing. Okay. So she invited me out to her place, and I went out to this kind of scruffy old school. It's really emotional. Kids met me in the parking lot. They were all dressed up. They put on their nice clothes for their guest. They had a welcome sign. And so we go down in this old school, down into the concaves of it, right? And go into her room. And she had the room like all bright colors and everything. They played level 2 literature. They played it really well. I mean, it was really musical. And afterwards, the kids all come up and said, thank you, and so forth. So I took her out to eat afterwards, and I said, my God, how did you do this? She goes, oh, she said, I can't thank you enough for this job. I said, what are you talking about? She said, they're all farmers. She said, they're either on the tractor or I've got them in rehearsal. And she said, they hate the tractor. So she said, I've got them in rehearsal all the time. She said, I can have them anytime I want them. And then she said, there's no other music even close around here. So we're playing in the local churches and, the grass fire openings and everything. And she said, this is phenomenal. I miss music. Okay. So fast forward. She builds the program up to 3 bands. right? She gets somebody else to help with the choir. And I mean, she's doing miracles in this little school. She's got like over 50% of the kids involved in music, and she does the beginners all the way up to the top. And I mean, now I'm going to tell you, she struggled in school, like you're training twice type person, right? Well, I get a call from the superintendent of Bill's school. And he said, he said, I don't want to complain, but he said, everybody said this guy was this big hot shot and everything. He said, we can't recognize the national anthem. And he said, I don't even know what our fight song is supposed to be. He said, it's terrible. He said, I'm going to fire him. He said, do you have anybody that can come in here and get this thing cleaned up? I said, I know a little girl that is really, she's magnificent with people. But I said, she's not in the same league he is as a musician. He said, I want the national anthem. I want the fight song. That's all I care about. I don't care about anything. Okay, so they did. They let him go and they hired her. Well, strangely enough, he comes to me and he goes, I got to get a job. I got to feed my family. I said, well, I know where there's a little job out in the middle of the country, but I don't think you want it. And he goes, I'll take anything. Well, they switched jobs. Now, you can write the rest of the script on your own, can't you, great teachers? It was within the second year I went and visited their groups. It was back to one group. He had lost the multiple bands. It was back to one group, and it was pretty weak. I went to her school. Once again, kids meet me outside. They're all dressed up. We go down. The room it looks like a conservatory. It's all, and we sat down where they were playing 4+5 literature, playing it really well. So afterwards I went out and I said, my God, how did you do this? Oh, she said, can't thank you enough. I'm like, what? She said, these kids have money. She said, I can have anything I want. She said, we got private lessons going. She said, we're going to take a trip to Europe next year. She's teaching music ed at a major university right now. And he's selling insurance and playing in, his Friday, Saturday night band. Now, this is not to be what's derogatory towards him in any sense. He's just a gifted talent kid. It's to show you how important that attitude was. She had every reason to fail. He had every reason to succeed. But when you put that attitude filter in front of it, like all of you, amazing, isn't it? It's just amazing. And that's, we don't talk about that a lot, do we? We talk about, and please understand, I'm a musician. If it was up, I'd stay in a practice room 18 hours a day if I thought I could get away with it, right? Or I'd keep playing with some of the best groups in the whole world just to get the chance to play. But to be in a posture to change a kid's life. And again, I think we're here because of music teachers. Certainly music, but it was the music teacher that hooked us to the art of music and opened that landscape, that endless treasury of expression where you can feel stuff and you can say stuff that you can't with any other language in the world. And it's universal. It doesn't make any difference where you grew up, or ears are ears. And that's why, I've often said that if anything's going to save this world, it's going to be the arts. Because when you bring people together, the art becomes the focal point, not all the other stuff. It's the art that pulls us together. And I'm after being old, and I'm really old, the number of groups that I've had the great opportunity and privilege to stand in front of that come from all over the world, where they can't even speak the same language, but sit down and play together. And at the end of their time together, or 4 or 5 days, whatever, and they're hanging on to each other and weeping and hugging and creating, lifetime relationships. When that happens, when there's that kind of harmony, then that harmony impacts everything else in life too. You don't fuss and fight with somebody when you're trying to harmonize with them in that sense. So I think sometimes, and what I think in a quarter won't get you a Coke, so let's don't get too excited about this. But I think sometimes we look in here as what we do instead of standing back and saying, oh my gosh, like when our days are finally over with and we stand in front of the pearly gates and St. Peter says, what did you do? So I was an arts teacher. I was a music teacher. He says, go in. You've been through enough hell. You paid your dues. But the other part is to say, oh, there's Trish. Thanks, Trish. Good to see you, sweetheart. What happens is we St. Peter will also say, do you know what you did while you were there? Do you have any idea the impact that you had on lives? And again, for those of you who are been at it a while, when you get that kid that walks in and you're like, do I remember you? It's like, oh, hi, Mrs. Leonard. Jim? Yeah. What, Jim, what are you doing now? I just got back on my second round in, I'm in the Marines and I was, you what? Yeah. I'm a colonel. What? And you're thinking, my God, I just almost kicked that kid out once. And then says, Mrs. Leonard, if it weren't for you, I don't think I'd amounted to much. My family was just not. And you proved to me I could do anything. And you remember that one day you got real upset with me because I was missing her. And man, you had to care about me a lot to come and find me and tell me. Where do we get that? We laugh about stories of how arts teachers will go the extra mile. Somebody else doesn't come into what? I don't know. the Latin class. I'm not sure the Latin teacher runs out and tries to find them. We'll go find a kid, won't we? Where they been? What's going on? Tell me. Some of you know. I know you know for sure. Another absolute true story. And I see Trisha's here, and Trish knows I talked about Miss Sellers. Miss Sellers was my choir teacher when I started first grade all the way through 12th grade. Miss Sellers was incredible. So I always laugh about because we had 212 in our high school. This was after consolidation, by the way. At the end of my senior year, 212 in high school, 202 in the choir. It's a powerful lady, but just great. And one time I was hanging out down the band room practicing my drums, and I missed choir. And after the next class, the guys came to me, a bunch of my friends, and they said, stay away from her. She knows you're in school. And we all got a lecture about responsibility and being on time and what you owe to other people. And it's, just stay away from her because she's going to tear you apart. And I remember walking down, I thought I'd gotten through the whole day without her. In the last class, I was walking down the main hallway and I saw her and she saw me. Well, there's only one place to go, isn't there? The men's restroom. Yeah. And I darted in that men's restroom and she came in right behind me. And there was guys standing, at the facilities. And she walked right in, and it's so vivid in my mind. I've got goosebumps now. And she went, "Hi, fellas," and pushed me back in the corner. And she was, "Tim Lautzenheiser, don't you ever miss rehearsal again. Do you know what you mean to this thing? And I always had confidence in you. I thought even someday you might be a music teacher. I am so disappointed in you, young man." And of course, all the men that are watching this know when you get scared, your bladder just stops. I mean, all kidneys functions halt immediately. So they're just standing there in freeze frame, right? As I'm getting my face ripped off. And then she just stopped and she put her hand on my face and she said, "Tim, you have always been one of my favorite people. I cannot tell you how disappointed I am in you, young man. Now, you're never going to miss rehearsal again, are you?" I'm like, "No, ma'am. She goes, well, that's good. I'll count on seeing you there then. Right? She goes, see you tomorrow, fellas. And out she went. And I never missed rehearsal again, nor did those guys that were standing at the facilities. You know how much you got to care to do that? And I think about that. I think about that. You know, it's the trite phrase, people don't care how much you know, they want to know how much you care. And everybody kind of rolls their eyes like, yeah, right. But it's true. Or Michelangelo, you know, they don't remember what you said. A lot of them don't even remember what you did, but they always remember how you made them feel. And we're a language of feeling. We're a language that allows a person who, you know, wants to be a steel man to cry and let it be okay. Or when one of the kids in the group, their grandmother dies, you watch everybody gather around that kid. And it doesn't make any difference if you're black, white, blue, yellow, tall, short, glasses, no glasses. We're all the same. The universal language that pulls us together. I think about, you know, Adam, you got me on my soapbox. You can tell, can't you? That when you go back for that reunion I was talking about, and everybody is always like really polite and so forth and standing around. They're showing pictures of their children and so forth. There's all of us over in the corner reliving those times. You remember when we went to that, you know, we went over to that amusement park because that was our spring trip. And then you remember Jill threw up on Bob's head on the roller coaster, and Bob was all upset, and we all had, and everybody's laughing because they remember. And Jill's going, no, that's not very funny. I don't think you ought to talk about me like that. But everybody remembers. And then at the end, you know, the class president always gets everybody together and they go, which was the teachers that had the greatest impact on you? And we just like go, it's our arts teacher. It's Mr. Thatcher. Is Dr. Johnson, man. Is Miss Lenson, man. Mrs. Lenson, she was great. Miss Lenson, man, she gets so mad. And they go, what? That's your choir teacher. Why would you say that? You know, because you're a lawyer now. So, well, that's how I got to be a lawyer. What? So, well, you know, you remember in rehearsal how we'd be getting sort of the end of class, and then you'd hear the bell ring, you know, and we'd start to move, and Mrs. Lenson would go, don't you move. We're going back to letter C. And everybody's going, no, we got it. And she goes, shut up. We're going to letter C, and you're going to do it again. I'll give you passes or whatever, which never happened. And then we do it again and get a little bit better. And then the next day we're right back at letter C again. And she'd always go, excellence is not something easy. If you don't you remember this? She always said that. If you settle for less than excellence, that's exactly what you're going to get in life. Less than excellence. And then we'd all like, yes, ma'am, on this sort of thing. But I remember going to law school and you know, everybody'd read their books and stuff, and then they'd go out and party and all this sort of thing. And I'd think, I didn't get it all the first time. I better go back to letter C. I go back to letter C and I get some more and they get better. And the next day it'd get a little bit better. I graduated second in my law class. I'm not that smart. But what she did was teach us not to settle for less than the best. And I just applied it to all of life. And that's why every university is after your kids, because they know you have taught them to do whatever it will take. Persistence alone is omnipotent. And if any of you, and Trish knows this, and I love her for knowing it too, if any of you know a shortcut to get to the top of the mountain, let me know. Because it looks like the shortcut's the long cut. And this is a part where I think our likenesses bring us together, but it's our differences that keep us together. That makes sense? It's like the love of art brings us together. But the different things we love within that's what keep us together. I mean, if everybody wanted to, I don't know, play violin, we'd never have an orchestra. You know, if everybody all they wanted to do was, you know, do dance, then we wouldn't have any music to dance to. And I just, you know, the older I get, the further I step back and I go, it's a microcosm of life. And you're the mayor of that town. So if a pandemic shows up, okay, well, let's see what we need to do to make it right. If an administrator doesn't understand, okay, well, let's deal with that. As Trish the other night heard, well, I guess that was last night, Trish, we were talking about that. There's a lot of difference between going, that shouldn't have happened, and I wasn't counting on that. Because just that shift in the way you look at it will determine how you're going to handle it. We don't see life as it is. We see life as we are. And so there'll be people, Adam, that will watch this and go, oh man, what's he talking about? What a bunch of nonsense. And there'll be somebody sitting right beside him going, oh man, I got a lot out of that. And it really won't have a lot to do with what I say. It'll have a lot to do with what we do in our minds after it is said. As they say, it's not what people say to us that counts. It's what we say to ourselves after they say it to us that counts. So I still think we're in the best profession in the world. And I think of in all the teaching profession, and again, I'm beating this one in the ground with everybody, the role model in the arts is the key. That's the secret sauce, because we can all learn the cognitive part, but the secret sauce is the personality of the individual that does the magic. And somebody said the other day, can you teach it? Well, I don't know, but you can certainly choose it. Right? Happy people live in happy worlds and sad people live in sad worlds. It's the same world. And everybody that fussed about the pandemic was fussing before the pandemic. And everybody that embraced it and said, well, let's see what we can learn from this, were the ones that were successful. So there's so much to that. But again, I'm not even preaching to the choir. I'm preaching to the preachers right now, because you're the ones that are doing it. And that's why you're here. Adam, I certainly thank you for inviting me to do this. I put, and so Adam's going to put it again later, I put my email address up there. Now, everybody says this. It's the the obligatory, if there's anything I can do for you, let me know, you know. But the truth is, if there's anything I can do for you, let me know. Because I am so desperate for friends that I will. Right, Trish, I answer spam. What'd you put there, Trish? I'm going to be extra positive with Dr. Tim 2 days in a row. Lots of things didn't go as planned. Yeah, you know, where we get angst in life, and thanks for putting that there, Trish, where we get angst in life is when life doesn't deliver what our pictures of what we think it should be. That makes sense? When what actually happened isn't what we thought should happen, that's where angst happens. Instead of saying, let's see what I can learn from this. Let's see what I can gain from this. Because in every sense, we are most creative in moments of chaos. That's where we dig deep. Otherwise, we're habit creatures and we'll lay back and stay with habit, chaos of life. And I know people go, well, Tim, but you know, so many, I don't want to fail. Show me anybody in this world that is a success that hasn't had a ton of failures. I want to meet them. When I hear that Walt Disney got fired because he was not a creative person from a newspaper, and that Mickey Mouse was an accident, what if he hadn't gotten fired? When a guitar player gets kicked off the stage because he's not a good singer, what if he'd have quit? We would not have had an Elvis Presley. Or what if the guy who wanted to make movies and got kicked out of the USC movie film program hadn't continued on his own without them? we would not have had a Steven Spielberg and all of the wonderful things he brought to us. We're all in this together. And there just isn't anything like music that makes it so good. So to all of you that were here, thank you. Literally, send me a note. I answer every note. If there's anything I can do for you, or our Conselmer people can do for you, or GIA can do for you, or Hal Leonard can do for you, right? Or Adam and all the wonderful people at Long and McQuaid can do for you, ask. Right now, your answer is no. If you want her to go to the prom, you have to ask. If she says no, you can write her off the list and go ask somebody else. Chances are she's probably going to say yes. So thanks again for your time, for all of you. And as Adam said, I hope the next time we do this is face to face, right, buddy? So thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks, Adam.